of the New Westminster. I will call to order this meeting of the New Westminster Police Board. I'll start by again recognizing and respecting that New Westminster is on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Halkah speaking peoples. And as we acknowledge that colonialism has made invisible their histories and their connections to the land, as a city, as a police board, as an organization, and as individuals, we're learning and building relationships with the people whose land we're on. And I will ask for a motion to adopt the open agenda. So moved, seconded. Is there any changes to the agenda or last minute additions? We had some on-table correspondence. Was that included? Okay, thank you. We don't have any on-table correspondence. Therefore, I'll ask for a vote to approve the agenda. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. And we have a presentation from Haley Finnegan on recruitment video. Audio-visual excitement right off the start. Let's hope. Oh, you are. I'll get it. Okay. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here to share with everyone our recruiting video. Before we press play, I would just like to say thank you to the long list of colleagues that helped me put this video together, the ones that appeared in the video, as well as the numerous people that helped out behind the scenes. And I'd also like to tip my hat to Techno Monkey Media, which put this together for us. And I think the final product is something we can all be proud of and really speaks to the values of the department. So I'll
There is a lot more to my job than most people think. It's a career like no other. Although we go through extremely tough situations, we still have time to relax and have fun. We have a vibrant downtown, yet we still have a small city feel, where you are connected to the whole department and community. I have been involved in some amazing assignments, working with community nonprofit partners and local businesses. I have also been involved with the Gang Suppression Unit and Integrated Regional Units. I continually grow as a person and build my skills as an officer. There is never a dull moment at my job, and it's always an adventure.
Okay, thank you. That was great, short and sweet.
There was police from right across the country traveled here to Etobicoke to pay their final
respects. It sounds like YouTube is still going. Okay. Are we good?
As the marching band made its way up the long driveway to the Congress Center's north building, a sea of Toronto police lined the route. Members from traffic services were leading.
Thank you, YouTube. The sponsors must be thanked. Thank you. Well, thanks for that. That is, it's short and sweet, under a minute. They're always telling me to make videos under a minute, so I'm glad to see that. And I'm also glad to see that Donuts made an early and prominent appearance in it. Thank you for holding up all of the biases we already have. But no, that was great. Thanks. I don't know if there's any comments or questions from anyone on council, anyone on the board. Seeing none. Thank you very much for that. Next on our agenda are delegations. We have a delegation from Mr. Ben Williams. Please, yeah, feel forward to come forward. Well, I'll try to, if you hit the button on that mic, I know which button, there we go.
There we
go, now it's on.
Ooh, I can hear myself, that's terrifying.
Yeah, thanks. I know you went through this, you had a dry run yesterday in council. Our delegation procedure is basically 5 minutes, so please use your 5 minutes as best you can. And yeah, and if we want to have questions or anything afterwards, we'll let the board do that afterwards. Thanks.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
So I had a bit of a pre-written speech, but I just noticed last night that the council was all wearing the orange ribbons in honor of, I guess, violence against women. The interesting timing for that. I've lost 20% of my membership base in my gym in the last year on Front Street. That 20% is women. I have almost no female members left because they don't feel safe walking down Front Street. In addition to that, I've lost most of my family members, members that came as groups with their family. So I just wanted to point that out. So I think that's pretty relevant considering that we're on the 16th day of paying attention to violence against women, that people who identify as women no longer feel safe accessing a section of the neighborhood. Over the last 7 years, East Front Street, we've had a lot of blows. We've had a lot of, obviously construction shutdowns, the parkade rebuild. We get shut down for filming regularly. COVID, Army and Navy closed. There's no trash cleanup or minimal trash cleanup. We have an overgrown, abandoned city lot that lends itself to crime and nuisance crime. There's a temporary staircase that's unsettling to walk down most times. There's a lack of lighting down there. There's a lack of trash disposal. There's just no city services down there. It's been death by 1,000 Band-Aids. It's an unactivated space. Nuisance crime is rampant. These were issues prior to the opening of the shelter. I'm not trying to blame it on the shelter. I know a lot of times when I bring this up, the topic comes up as a provincial matter, it's a homeless matter, it's a BC housing funding matter. This is mainly about the police availability on Front Street and the infrastructure that lends itself to crime. The shelter brought a lot of pressure onto that block, and it was put on a block that has, poorly designed infrastructure. The businesses down there really strongly feel that the police board needs to advocate to the city, publicly or privately, that this infrastructure needs to be improved. I mean, it's unsafe for the police to come down there. We're creating these nuisance crimes which create friction. We now have non-violent community members carrying weapons to protect themselves because they feel unsafe in the neighborhood for crimes that we can't call the police for. We call 911, we get told to call non-emergency. Non-emergency wait times can be, an hour or more. So far, the only thing that's really improved things from the night that the patrol division have time to come down. When they're down there, we have a different environment. If you talk to the vulnerable people on the streets, they like it when the patrol division comes down there. A lot of them are victimized. Actually, most of them are victimized, and they feel safer when there's a police presence. We're not trying to ask that we go down there as billy clubs and move people along, but simply having a budget for increased patrol division in New Westminster would be just the biggest asset to that neighborhood we could get. And additionally I know the police board doesn't have anything to do with infrastructure, but the infrastructure has a lot to do with crime. And I really, really, really think you guys need to push on the city that they need to clean up the infrastructure down there to make it easy for everybody. I'll leave it with that because, I obviously went into more detail in my email and my message. You guys have seen the letters, I'm sure, and reviewed them. But that's mainly what I want to make sure got on record here.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions coming from the members of the police board right now. But thank you for your presentation. I don't know if Chief has any comments or. Oh, sorry, I have to turn your mic on. You have to ask for a mic waiting, and I hit the button. Thank you.
We're good?
Very good.
Thanks, Brennan. Appreciate it.
Red means go in the case of these mics.
Cool. Just so the board knows, Brennan and I have been communicating over email. So I haven't gone down there to meet in person. Today's the first day, but we did have one of our sergeants, Schultz, who's been doing his best with the time that they have to spend some time down there, which I think, thank you for recognizing that, because I know that the members do try to get down there as much as possible. And as the board knows, it's certainly on our radar. It's something that we try to do. It does kind of form the basis of ironically, our budget presentation, which is coming up shortly in regards to what we're trying to do as far as expanding our capacity to be able to have more resources to allot to these areas that maybe pop up over time. It's, right now it's Front Street, it might be Sapperton or it might be Uptown or whatever the case may be. Right now, we just don't have the dedicated resources to be able to dedicate someone to that. So I just want you to know we hear you. We absolutely hear you. We know what's going on. The deputy every single morning is on a walkabout down there himself, and we'll continue to do what we can. And I know that the board has been supportive in regards to our ask as we go into 2023 in regards to our budget, that hopefully will also address some of these issues. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
If I can say this, the patrol guys that have been down there are really good.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thanks, Brendan. It is an open police board meeting, so you can stick around and hear the rest of our rest of the discussion if you wish. Or you can...
13 people pop you.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
I'm here for my notion.
Good luck with that. Thanks. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have 6 items on the consent agenda. I would ask members of the board if they wish to pull anything for discussion or comments. Sorry, 3.6. So I'm just checking my online as well. Sorry, screen management here. 3.6 has been pulled. I don't see anything else being pulled, so I would ask for a motion from the members to approve the items on the consent agenda that have not been pulled. Moved by Heather, seconded by Patrick. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Item 3.6. Heather.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm a
I can't hear Heather.
Sorry, you turn your mic on. Sorry, sorry, that was my fault. I have to manage the mic.
okay. But before we could just push them.
Yeah, I know. Something's changed on this. I'm not sure what it is. So.
But the update from Ecom is not super helpful for me. Like, to say that they have like 4 people in training when I don't know their Delta. Like, and so I'm wondering if we can provide feedback on the update, because they'll say like, oh, we have, we filled 12 seats. Well, if they have 100 seats empty, that's not going to really help. So I'm just thinking, I like getting this update because it is helpful, but to put it in a little bit more context would be good feedback to give to Ecom, so that we can understand, like, are we moving, or did they have 12 seats and 12 people quit, and are we staying status quo? Like, that part of the information's not in the update. So just wanting to continue this, but with a bit more information.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. I will pass that on. There is also some documentation that we might have from a few months ago that we can also bring forward at the next meeting. And I believe that January or February, we're going to try to have your representative come to speak to the board. I think we had talked about that with Mayor Cote. So we'll follow up with that and make sure that we arrange that so that you can also have that one-on-one conversation directly with Mr. Madden. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'd suggest maybe if you can't just send informal correspondence with them mentioning that, the appreciation on the note, and that that Delta information, maybe that's something we can discuss further if they're able to come and present to the board.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank
you.
For sure. My question on the correspondence, we did receive a note, a letter addressed to me, but it was redacted for the person's name and address. Is that a standard practice for us for putting things into the open? Yeah, so the item 336A. Sorry, you can speak on your mic.
I didn't have a chance to go back to her and ask for her permission to put it in the open in time.
Okay.
So I redacted it for that reason.
So we would normally go back and check with them, confirm with them that they're fine having their information shared with them. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to understand what the practice was here. It's new to me. Okay, thank you very much. So with that, I would just ask for a motion to receive the correspondence in 3.6. So moved, seconded, all in favor, all opposed, carried. And, sorry folks, just managing my many agendas. See, my screens are going crazy. Next item on the agenda is 4.1 Governance 2022 Q3 Financial Report, and I believe there's a presentation from Jacqueline. Yep, floor is yours. Okay. If you hit the request, I actually know which mic button to hit here.
There
There you go, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Yep. I will now present the Q3 financial report, which is for the month ending September 30th. The report provided was very similar to Q2. We're still trending currently on budget, just slightly under budget. That is forecasted to change by the end of the year end. We are still forecasting around a $400,000 shortfall if all of my predictions and forecasts ring true to the end of the year. Within salaries and benefits, we're currently about 3% over budget. The gap there is supposed to narrow slightly as we close out year end. The majority of the variance within salaries and benefits is due to secondments, which we do recover within revenue. So you see that at the bottom of the report. Some of the other variances are due to the collective agreement, which we've discussed several times, as well as benefits are trending slightly higher than originally budgeted. Into contracted services, it's currently under budget by $250,000. My expectation is that will absorb by end of the year end once we get all of our invoicing in from all of our contracted services. Education and training is under budget by $50,000. My expectation it will be actually over budget by 50 now that we have the JIBC invoice in there, and I've predicted out how many staff members I expect to take increment courses before the end of the year and submit. Into general office, we are slightly under budget. I think we'll be just around there for year end as well. I have highlighted that legal expenses could pose a challenge if sort of prior year trends continue, which sometimes we receive a lot of invoices kind of at the end of the year. Equipment, we are over budget by $94,000. We're trying to offset some of those in other accounts. It's just due to inflation, the high cost of outfitting the members, and some of the equipment has really increased this year. The next category, sales and services. We are currently having revenue of about $530,000 more than expected. A lot of that is due to the additional secondments, increased filming, stuff like that you see over in salaries and benefits. And lastly, the government grants, we're currently short $148,000. That is due to the traffic fine revenue, which was $250,000, but some of that shortfall has been offset by additional revenue received for the gang suppression unit. So that is sort of where we sit right now for Q3. Is there any comments or questions?
I don't see comments and questions from the board members. I have one clarity question, I guess, and this is me being new to this role. What is the procedure around us actually going over budget? So in the city, effectively, the way I'm used to us managing our finances in the city is we essentially staff can't spend money until it's approved. And so if there is an anticipation we're going to be going over budget within a budget year, they have to come back to council to ask for a change of the budget numbers. It sounds here like we're anticipating we're going to be over budget. Is there a formal process to request back, or do we just rectify at the end of the year what happens to the budget?
I believe that there in July, when the collective agreement was finalized, it was presented that the shortfall would be about $300,000. So I believe that amount has been approved. I'm not sure what the status would be with the remaining 100, or if those are right at this point. They're my forecasted numbers. There's a lot that can happen for the year end, but I'm not sure what the procedure would be. That I'd have to confirm with finance.
Okay, thanks. Maybe the chief has a.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So what occurred last year? We ran into the same situation last year. So I just will continue conversations with the CFO from the city. And last year, what occurred was it was just seen as one big, my understanding, one big kind of budget that fell within the city budget. So then it all equaled out. But I can confirm that with Harji and just make sure that I'm not speaking incorrectly in regards to that, to let the board know how we would proceed moving forward.
Yeah, I think similarly, I think other departments in the city, they may also go over under budget or whatever, and there's some flexibility in there. I just want to try to understand the procedures between this department and how council makes its decision on budget allocation. So thank you for that clarity, and we'll maybe follow up with Harji and get some clarity on that from our own purposes. Thank you. Seeing no other questions or concerns, I'd ask that, I don't think there's, the only question here is for receipt of the report. Move receipt. Second. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. 2023 provisional budget. My understanding here is that this is essentially the similar budget as our previous discussion on the board. There aren't any significant changes. Maybe just go through in a summary form. I think there was already a bit of a public discussion of this in the Joint Police Board City Council meeting, but I don't know if you just want to give a summary of any changes or just the highlights, just so we don't spend too much time going over the same work again.
Absolutely. I just have a couple of open comments, Your Worship, and then I'll pass it over to Jacqueline, who will do exactly that. So, as you mentioned, we're going to be presenting to you for your approval the 2023 New Westminster Police Department budget. As required in the Police Act, you must approve a provisional budget by November 30th. But I think we have drummed that into everyone's heads over the last couple of presentations. So as the Mayor said, our plan today is not to go back through all the presentation that we did on November 23rd. We're kind of almost acting like this is a continuation of your open meeting on the 23rd, where we went through in a lot of detail. For the public that may be watching, there is a link on our website in regards to going back if they would wish to watch the entire presentation on the 23rd, along with the entire package that we put together for both the board and council in open on the 23rd is also on our website, so folks can read that in its entirety. So as I said, back on the 23rd, we went through the details of the budget and discussed in detail, and there's no doubt that the proposed budget is significant in its potential impact on the city's budgeting process. What is also clear is that without the proposed increases, the decisions that will need to be made will be difficult and impactful to our service delivery. We've seen the impact of several years of not addressing staffing challenges as our population to COP numbers increased in the last 20 years. Now we have the highest differential of any in the region. At the same time, our budget has grown the least percentage-wise of any of the regional municipal policing agencies, and our growth of members is the second lowest among these same comparators. We cannot continue to see these discrepancies as it impacts public safety and ultimately our own staff's mental health. On an increasing basis, I'm being asked by the community, businesses, and the city's own staff for an increased police presence that I just cannot provide. I think we saw the presentation earlier from a downtown business owner, and I know last night at City Council there was a few delegations that came forward to Council to discuss with them their wish that their safety concerns be addressed both at the city level and a little bit we were also mentioned, and those demands continue to grow. As I said last week on the 23rd, though, I'm not trying to paint this doom and gloom story. It's just the reality of where we find ourselves. We're coming out of COVID. It's been made more difficult, and I would also add, and this is on me, is we really haven't had a plan to see public safety staffing levels addressed as we watch the city grow, and I own that. This is not unique to New Westminster either. My colleagues around the region are also grappling with some of the same issues, and their boards, and they're bringing forward to their boards, I'm sure, similar budget requests. And even recently, as you may or may not have seen, the provincial government announced almost a $250 million increase to the provincial police budget to do in part what we're trying to do, bringing our staffing levels back to where they are allotted to be. With your support and direction, I believe we have creatively found a way to support the NWPD through these challenges, and collectively we have built a plan, and now we need and ask for your support to enact it. And so I will pass it over to Jacqueline, who, as I said, will just provide a very high-level recap of what we're asking for in 2023.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so I will sort of just highlight the three areas that we talked about last week, which are the non-discretionary fixed costs, the non-discretionary cost downloads, as well as some budget enhancements. So under the fixed costs, we have an increase of $1.251 million, which is majority for salary and benefit increases with the new collective agreements, as well as some adjustments due to secondments. So that's really the lion's share of that category. The next category we discussed last week was the non-discretionary cost downloads. We have additional salaries for covering our non-emergency ecom lines, which is $199,000. as well as increases to our ECOM contractual agreement or requirements. JIDC increased funding is required for training new recruits. We've estimated new recruits again at 9, so that number could change depending on the number that we get, but this is our best estimate at this time, as well as increases to our contracted services for integrated teams and custodial services. There's also the reduction for the traffic fine revenue, which we are holding at half of this current year's reduction, or $125,000. The last category is for the budget increases and enhancements. As the chief was noting, we are put forward the strategy to backfill some of the staffing vacancies or covering off our staff while they're in training for recruitment. So that is $655,000. The additional $150,000 to support a missing persons investigator. And then again, some additional costs to help offset inflation pressures within the budget for items such as firearms, clothing, staff recruitment, prevention services, information technology, and consultants that we have outlined in the report last week. That total increase is $960,000, which gets us to our overall budget increase of 11.9%, or $3,112,000. That was a really high-level, quick overview. If there are any specific questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Just checking my. Oh, Heather, give you 1 sec. Ron.
No questions. Just after our meeting with council and reading all the correspondence, I really feel that as a member of the police board, that I stand behind the requests that we've put forward. I think if we didn't put forward some new FTEs, we wouldn't be hearing our community and understanding we're working within the context of city budgets, but also understanding that we have to balance what the community is asking for. And I think we're in a different place than we were a couple of years ago, where people were saying defund the police. People are actually wanting that support within the community. So just supportive of moving forward with the current state budget.
Thank you. Drew, you are on the agenda and your hand is up.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would echo what Heather said. I'm confident in the budget that we put forward. I'd like to thank the chief and team for putting that together. And I also echo when I was reading the correspondence in the package of the community concerns, it was, I felt good about what we've put forward as a budget, because I think our plan to deal with some of the backfill will inherently address some of those issues brought forward from the community. So just echo what Heather said and really supportive of the budget ask that we're putting forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yep, I echo my board members and just being fully supportive of the budget. And I'd like to thank the chief and the whole leadership team and Jacqueline for putting together an excellent budget that I think reflects exactly all the things we talked about the last several weeks now on this budget. So yeah, thanks for putting forward a very forthcoming and reflective budget of some of the issues we talked about.
Yeah, and for myself, I'll say thank you for the work you did to put this together. I recognize it's a challenging time financially for many departments in the city, but nonetheless, but the police board, the police department as well. And I appreciate the challenges we're facing with staffing, not just as a result of what's going on here, but as a result of what's going on around the region, and the approach that you're taking to finding a way to backfill to make sure that we actually have a proper complement out in the city, and to address some of our recruiting challenges that are, again, many of them are a little bit out of our control. So I appreciate that. And I guess what I appreciate most is I'm going to have to sell the idea of budget increases at a time when people are really feeling the pinch in the community, and having the detail that was provided in the budget makes it easier for me to talk about that and to ask people about what, not just, I realize you don't support tax increases, but I want to know what part of the tax increase you don't support so we can have a conversation about that. So I feel confident in being able to defend the proposal we're putting before council. So I appreciate the work that was put into making it defensible and understandable so that we can have that conversation. So seeing no other questions or comments, I'd ask that the motion is that that board support the proposed budget, that the support's going to council in this form. So moved, seconded. All in favor? All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. 4.3, strategic plan update. Yeah, it's a report for information from Constable Highland.
Thank you, Your Worship, and board members for allowing me.
He turned his mic on without me giving him permission. That is amazing. Good work. Okay.
That's how I roll.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks again for giving me the opportunity to just provide a high-level verbal update on the strategic plan, to bring everyone up to speed. Our strategic plan was approved by the board earlier this year. We've made significant progress moving forward on a number of the priorities, and I'll just touch on some of them. I note that in the report, it notes many of them, or most of them, are on track. I would caveat that in that a lot of them are waiting for kind of budgetary approval, which we have now, with regards to engaging some of the consultants. So there's been a ton of background work that's been done, kind of getting things ready to go. And then it's just a matter of actually ensuring that we can afford bringing in consultants to assist us with some of the work. Really quickly on our priorities, the priority one is strengthening community engagement. One of those plans is creating an Indigenous Peoples Engagement Plan, which is being overseen by Inspector Gossel. She's done a lot of work behind the scenes, working with the City Indigenous Relations Advisor, Ms. Christina Coolidge. And I'll just maybe quickly turn it over to Inspector Gossel for a quick update on how things are going.
Hi, Your Worship. So what my division's done, we've built the framework for an Indigenous engagement plan, and we have a matrix in place which we have goals for the next 2 years. So yes, we have been collaborating with the Indigenous advisor for the city, as well as the Elder William. We're also in the last stages of putting together our Blue Eagles Cadet program. We've secured a facility in the city, and it's basically going to focus with Indigenous youth and programs that we will have and introducing them to law enforcement. Vancouver and Surrey have already started that program, and it's been successful. Another thing we have happening next year is we have one dedicated training day in relation to Indigenous component, whether we're still working on how that's going to look, whether if it's going to be with the Indigenous advisor or another nation within our community or someone with lived experience. So we have that coming. And we're also, with some of the BC provincial policing standards, we will be reviewing some of our policy in regards to Indigenous cultural safety, which will be done next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Inspector Gossel. The next three there, they're all kind of interconnected. Establishing a diversity and community engagement team, as I believe we've talked to the board about. Inspector Gossel has been doing a review of her division. And out of that came the FTE request for the missing persons investigator. And there's more to come on that. There's a more detailed plan on how that division will look and how it would actually begin some of the community engagement work. Creating a community group engagement and communications plan. The chief has been working very hard on that along with Haley and the city, Jennifer Miller. Again, there's a plan in place there. There's some costing associated with that. I don't have that right now. And then the final part of that would actually be going out and starting to do the work, engaging with community groups. So that is kind of where we're at with priority one. Priority two, modernizing community safety. Again, you'll see some of the work being done here, supporting committees within the city, including the Policing Modernization Subcommittee, Peer-Assisted Crisis Team. The chief has been very engaged with that, along with Inspector Gossel. For the last 4 to 6 weeks, we've had a dedicated resource assisting PAC, getting some background information, some data, which would assist them when they're looking at things about the hours that they're going to be working. We understand this is obviously a separate entity from the police department. So in the background where we can, we're providing assistance to assist them in getting up and running. Implementing the Police Act review recommendations. This is very high level stuff that's going on. They're actually looking at making changes to the Police Act. I sit on a subcommittee as part of the BC Association of Chiefs of Police. tasked with providing recommendations to government. I can't speak too much on the work that's going on. We are required to sign a non-disclosure agreement until it goes through cabinet. What I can say is that the group has been given the go-ahead by government to start looking at some of these changes, and they're basically based on the significance of them in phases. So I think that's pretty much all I can say on that, but there is some progress. That committee is meeting almost monthly now. Beginning to implement unbiased policing standards. This is a standard that's come down through police services and the province. The goal or the requirement is these are all in place by July of 2023. And again, Inspector Gossel is overseeing the implementation. I don't know if you have a quick overview of that or can provide a quick update.
So there are 3 main policy and standards that are required for us to be put in place by July 30th of 2023 in relation to the promotion of unbiased policing. So the first one is in relation to community partnerships and equitable policing. So building that framework and policy to support equity in policing or equitable policing. And the other one is community engagement. So also a policy and standards put in place for community awareness and outreach. And the third one is promoting diversity within the police force.
Thank you. Just moving on down to number 8, implementing alternative non-emergency call systems to improve call wait times. I think the board's up to speed on where that's going. Inspector Perry's been overseeing that project. We're in the process. I believe actually we tentatively identified the supervisor position. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. We have engaged with ECOM on this, and those conversations are ongoing. We anticipate early 2023 to be in a position to spool this up and get it up and running. I don't know if Andrew, if you have any updates on that? No. And then there's a couple that are linked if I move down into investing in our people. So when we're talking about designing and implementing an employee engagement survey and also retaining a consultant to define a wellness program. So I've been engaged with an external consultant on this. We haven't signed a contract, so I'm not in a position to name her in an open forum yet. I can say that this consultant has done extensive work with a number of police departments, not only in BC, but also out of province. So what we're working on is to create an engagement and a wellness survey, find out, take the temperature of the organization. We haven't done that since 2019, pre-COVID. And then also to have the external consultant kind of define for us what the steps forward are to ensure member wellness, staff wellness in the organization. As it stands now, the estimated costing on both of those items is about $50,000. So again, we have some approval here now on a tentative or provisional budget. So we're moving forward and engaging with the consultant and signing off on a contract in that area. I will move on then to some of the KPIs, the key performance indicators that we're tracking to kind of measure our success on the various areas. Public satisfaction, again, the latest data we have goes back to 2019 when we did a community survey. We anticipate we'll have an updated figure in that area. So that's basically the percentage of respondents that indicate they are satisfied with NWPD services. So once the community engagement piece is up and running, we anticipate having that number updated. In addition to some data on public trust in police in the local context and stakeholder satisfaction, which is more of the community groups and strategic partners that we actually engage with. Crime rate, another one of our measures that we're tracking. As mentioned in the last meeting, we've seen an uptick, a 5-year trend upwards in the crime severity index, which is, we like to use this as a measure insofar as it measures crime severity. There is figures attached to the severity of crime. For instance, murders would have the highest score, right down to say shoplifting, which would be on the lower end. This is measured and it tracks, not only violent but non-violent increases. Our total increase from 2020 to 21 is 6.7%. Violent crime, the severity index went up 27.7%, which is a significant concern for us. While the non-violent crime dropped slightly, it was basically equal, but minus 0.5%. Just caveat that with the fact that we all know we're getting a significant number of abandoned calls on the non-emergency line. I believe it's close to 60%. So that figure is probably artificially maintaining its base. We anticipate that number is also increasing. Response time, so we're just tracking priority 1 response time. These are, the most significant calls we go to, the life and limb type calls. We did see an overall reduction in our response time to 10 minutes and 33 seconds from 11 minutes and 37 seconds. So that's broken down into the time that the call is actually received till the time it's dispatched, and also the time from its dispatch to the time that we arrive. Then attrition, just tracking attrition, we've seen a 22.3 attrition rate in 2022. Approximately 25 sworn members of the authorized strength of 114 left the organization. About half of that was from retirements. So again, a significant number of experienced members walking out the door to come up due for retirements. We don't anticipate the same level of retirements in 2023. And then what the unknown is the number of vacancies we might see based on what happens with the Surrey Police Service. That's obviously an ongoing issue, waiting a decision from the province, and that will have a significant impact either way on the path forward for us. That is my update. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board or comments? Heather.
Yeah, thanks for the update. It's nice to see near end. There's just a couple of things that I was hoping we could see in one of our future board meetings, like some of the deliverables, like the Indigenous Peoples Engagement Plan and the Community Group Engagement Plan. If we could share that at one of our upcoming meetings, that would be helpful. Nice to know it's done, but I like to know details, so thank you.
Yep, take that as instruction. Yep. I don't see any other comments or questions. I do appreciate the KPIs at the end, but I'd maybe ask if we can. I like KPIs in the way they're presented here, because some of these things are kind of qualitative, and you've kind of tried to find ways to put quantitative numbers on this so that they can actually be tracked. I think that's really useful for a brain like mine. But I wonder if you can maybe work on the presentation of the KPIs a bit. I think that the advantage of them is they give you an opportunity to do a bit of a dashboard. So you can actually sort of say, well, like, here's our baseline, here's our goal, here's where we are, and provide a bit of dashboard. And also a bit of a timeline on these. Like, some of them might be annual numbers we're going to be able to provide, or even every couple of years we can provide it, like the surveys may only be once a year or once every 2 years, but other ones are monthly or quarterly. So just getting an idea of how soon we're actually going to expect, or how frequent our reporting is in the KPIs, and then some sort of a dashboard model on it. Maybe you might want to engage your communications folks a bit to figure out how to make that a little more easier than just kind of a table of text, because we kind of get lost in the text when we're using KPIs. But other than that, I really appreciate the report, and I think it's a good presentation, and I appreciate getting the update. So unless there's any comments, yep, okay, great. So the motion on the floor is to move just for a seat. Yep, moved and seconded. All in favor, all opposed, carried. Thank you very much. And I believe that takes us to the end of our agenda. There are no new items of business, so that will end our agenda. Next meeting is yet to be determined, or do we have a date for that? Oh, it's in the consent agenda. That's right. We have dates now from the consent agenda. So please refer to your consent agenda for the date of the next meeting. And we will adjourn the open meeting. A written agenda for the printed agenda for the. We'll take 5 minutes before we do the next. It is, yeah. Okay, so we have to log out and log back in for this one. Thanks. I should have printed it out, but I'll start. Oh, we got 5 minutes. Great.